It's been a little while since I've talked about this site on this channel. Obviously, a lot's happened in the last few months, but patentrebel.com, it's a website that we bought for too much. We
about 2 times too much.
we gave a 40x multiple on the expected income, not the actual income. It's really worth about half of what we paid for it.
Yeah.
And so the goal was to quickly get it back to at least what we paid for it and hopefully grow it from there. As I battleship this site, I found that there's a lot of content that's ranking really well, but driving almost no traffic. So it's time for a change. So today what we're gonna talk about is how to know when it's time for you to make a change on your site. There's actually times whether your site's succeeding or failing when making a change is gonna be really beneficial to you.
We'll probably refer to these changes as just a pivot.
Yeah.
You may be pivoting because it's working, you may be pivoting because it's not. There are, I would say, a list of 4 or 5 reasons why you really might want to pivot. And the first one is monetization. For us anyway, especially on Patent Rebel, that was our first reasoning why we wanted to pivot, was there's just limited monetization in the niche.
It was interesting, I was talking to Jim about it and I was like, can we do some lead generation or something for patent attorneys? And he's like, no, lawyers can't buy leads for that kind of stuff. I was like that's a legal thing. Like, crap, so what am I supposed to do? Basically, we were limiting ourselves to ads.
Right.
And so limited monetization could be an issue. The more you get into your niche and you start looking at affiliate programs and other opportunities and you realize none of these are gonna work. I'm stuck to just ads. Time to make a pivot and expand into a new category.
The second one is low traffic. This is also one that we have experienced. All of the, or many of the posts were ranking #1 on this site. But there's just such low search volume there that even though we were #1, it just wasn't enough.
And that's something when you're trying to identify a good niche, you don't always know what it's going to be. But as you think about it, patents, those are for people who are mostly like inventing stuff. Well, how many people are inventing stuff and haven't talked to a patent lawyer or someone about their intellectual property? I mean, it's just a smaller group of people, limited traffic. And it seems fairly capped because we are ranking for so many things across the whole spectrum of content about patents. And so really we felt it out and it's just not that big.
The third one is that you just feel like you've covered the topic. I think we have over 100 posts just on patent topics. And so for this one, there's probably some space we could expand into, and we're actually looking into that a little bit on some of the things that are working. But if you get to the point in your niche where you are just feeling like it's kind of filled up, you've just written all the articles that you should write, that could be another reason to pivot.
Right, at that point, writing additional content in that niche is, you're almost kind of cannibalizing your other content. So by adding a new piece of content, the additional traffic that you're going to get to your site by having that content starts to go down. So the marginal value of a new article is less and less over time. So even if your site's succeeding, but you're starting to hit that point, again, it might be time for a pivot.
Reason number 4 is just that the competition in the space is higher than you expected. This is probably one that you'll come across if you've been in the niche for a while, because like Ricky said, it's hard to know in the beginning exactly what the competition and the search volume is. So after you've been in the niche a while, it's possible that you just find that, holy cow, this is super competitive, and you might just need to make a little change into something that's just a little bit less competitive.
Exactly. And then the next one is growth. And this is, hey, it's working well. And now I know what works. So let's go ahead and make a pivot and expand into maybe an adjacent category where we can pick up even more. And basically it's like, now I am the competition, right? I'm doing really well, my authority has grown, and I can just expand the topic even wider. Those are several reasons, and there are probably others. I'd love to hear if you have other reasons why you have felt the need to pivot in your business. So now we want to talk about exactly how we would make that pivot. In a recent video, we talked about kind of a structural map for how to organize your content. And that map is so tremendously helpful when it comes time to pivot. It's helpful for so many things. And so if you haven't watched that video and actually done that and kind of structured out your website to figure out where you are within your niche, you absolutely should go do that, because that's going to really help you in this next step.
The first step you need to take is just to figure out where you are on your content map. So after you've watched the other video, mapped out your niche, you're going to find out exactly where you are within that map. We did this for Patent Rebel. We realized that kind of the big niche is intellectual property. Kind of the subcategories there are patents, trademarks, and copyrights. we're definitely in the patent space. And then we have a couple sub-categories that we are following in the patent space. So you need to do that with your own site and figure out exactly where you are in the niche so you can identify where you're going to pivot to.
Exactly. So under patents, we've pretty well covered the patent types. I mean, they're covered so much in those articles. How to get a patent, how much they cost, all that kind of stuff. That's really pretty well covered. What can you patent?
Right.
It's kind of like been beaten to death on that website. And then there's some other content sort of on peripheral areas. There's a few articles around careers in patent law.
Yes.
Which is a totally different audience.
Yes.
It's not the I want to get a patent audience. It's the I want a career audience.
Right. And that kind of leads me into the next point here, which is once you identify where you are, you want to start with what's working.
Right.
And for us with Patent Rebel, that's actually kind of what's working is this separate
totally
audience.
is.
It's not the people who are trying to get patents. It's for these professionals who are looking to be in the career in the patent space.
Exactly. This is patentrebel.com. And when I go to my Google Analytics, you can see here the top article on the website is how to become a patent attorney. Number one.
I mean, the whole site.
And so maybe there's some space there. And so as we, as I battle shift this and stuff, and as I start to do additional search analysis, exploring that just a little bit more, maybe some of the other careers in patent law that are maybe not the lawyer piece, or maybe some like the best law schools for patent attorneys, or the best degrees to get if you want to become a patent attorney, etc. And so that's an area that we can explore.
Yes.
Definitely.
And then the second part to that is not only what's working traffic-wise, but what's working or what could potentially work for monetization.
Exactly.
And if you look back at the analytics, our second article is how to patent a logo, which, if you know anything about that, isn't actually about patents.
Not at all. In fact, you don't patent a logo, you trademark it. In fact, everything with like business names and stuff and logos and design, that's all trademark, which is a different area of intellectual property. And there are 4 or 5 articles on the website that are geared toward people that are searching about patents who are basically just making a mistake in what they search.
Right.
And it answers and it says, you don't patent a logo, you trademark it, here's how. I started looking into affiliate programs and it clicked one day. I was like, there's a few articles here on trademark. Obviously, one of them is doing really well. And then from a traffic and monetization standpoint, maybe this opens new doors. I realized maybe there are services that do trademark where you're not selling a lead to a lawyer.
Right.
And so I looked at some of the legal services online. There's LegalZoom and there's some others as well that have affiliate programs that also handle trademark. They handle provisional patents, which isn't a full patent. It's how you get that patent pending. They handle copyright. And I'm like, wow, I actually could earn a commission for sending people over there for trademark stuff.
Yes.
And so it's one of the top topics on our site. And it's a place where we can monetize.
Yes. This right here gives us the perfect opportunity to look back at our map, kind of to see where our site's at. And now we've identified what's working. We have a couple avenues which we can choose to pivot to. So we can either pursue the becoming a patent lawyer or going into the patent space career-wise, or we could pursue trademarks because trademarks is just so closely related. And that brings you back to the map where, for us, we were down from intellectual property down into patents. Well, the very next topic closest to that is trademarks.
And so deciding where to move or where to pivot to, it really depends on why you need to pivot.
Right.
Kind of going back to some of those. If we're dealing with a limited monetization or a limited traffic issue, well, at that point, like, we can't niche down. We can't pivot down, further down that map, because we already have a traffic problem and or a monetization problem. Yep. We need to move somewhere else. And to do that, the best option is actually to move over. So you kind of go up the structural map and then down a different branch.
Right.
In this case, for us, trademark. If instead you're in a position where you're saying, really, I'm in growth mode, this is working really well, well, then you might decide it's more of a pivot upward.
Right.
And you're going to say, you know what? This site is going to be about intellectual property.
Yes.
I might tackle trademark first and then move into copyright, but it is moving into the intellectual property side of things.
And if you're having a competition issue, you might want to actually niche down. So if we were having a competition issue with trademark, we might want to find another sub-niche down or a subtopic down where we can actually compete for those terms. That's not the case here, but that could be the case for you. So if you are having that issue, definitely look at your map and identify some places where you could niche down a level.
To me, that brings up the question, how do we cover trademark or copyright on a website called Patent Rebel? When we create a website, we don't want to pick a domain name or just a brand for the website that pigeonholes you too tightly into one, you don't want to get backed into a corner where you're stuck. In this case, the domain name has patent in the name.
Right.
But the way I see it, Patent Rebel feels like a brand.
Yeah.
And I think because patents are so closely in people's minds, closely related to intellectual property, I actually don't see a problem with taking the Patent Rebel brand and allowing that to cover intellectual property.
Right.
That doesn't bother me at all.
In some cases, like Patent Rebel, the modifier there to me makes all the difference. Whereas it's not explicitly all about patents. Yes, the word patent is there, but it does feel something that's a brand, not a getyourpatenttoday.com where it's just like, oh, this is all about patents.
Exactly. Okay, so once we've identified where we think we want to pivot to, the next step is to actually size that opportunity. In this case, we're going to use a lot of the same tools we use when we're picking our niche initially.
Yes.
When we're doing search analysis, we're going to go. I think first we do just kind of a mental game, and so I ask myself the question: how many people are inventing stuff to the point that they need to file for a patent? And I don't know that number. Like when this niche was originally picked by someone, they didn't know that number.
Right.
And I probably would have thought it's probably fine. But now that we know it's just not that big, we say, okay, well then how does that compare to the number of people who might be interested in trademarks? And that number I think is very different and very much bigger. Compared to the number of people inventing stuff, the number of people who own a business with a business name or who have designed something that they don't want other people to copy, who have a logo, etc., a name of a band. I mean, how many people are asking questions online about how to protect their brand, their logo, their business versus patent? And then copyright, kind of the same thing.
Right.
How many people are writing stuff? How many bloggers are out there who are asking about, do I need to file copyright for my blog posts and that type of thing? As I mentally size the opportunity, it's so much bigger.
It becomes kind of obvious where we should move here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then the next question is, as we go into the search analysis, is the competition beatable? Can I participate in this industry? And given the clout that this site already does have as a number one ranking site in many searches around patents, I don't see that being a major issue. But that's something we have to get into as we do that search analysis.
This is going to help you fix your site if you're well, and not only just fix your site, but if it's doing well, it can help you do even better. But what's better than having to fix a problem? It's just not having the problem in the first place. Project 24 is our membership program that can help you start from square one, or if you have an established site, it can help you just avoid all of these problems or fix up those problems. So go to incomeschool.com and check out Project 24. It's fantastic.
It is.